Hello and welcome to another episode of Cake Bite Presents The Making of Kaleidoscope. I'm writer, director, producer Paige Feldman, and this week, as every week, I'm taking you inside my process of making my debut feature film. We're going from idea to premiere in real time. So I am coming around the home stretch, finally, of revising this first draft of Kaleidoscope. It has been a whole slog. I am currently just over page 200, so I have about 60 pages left to go, and then I have to type in all the changes. But finally, I'm gonna soon be able to see what all my hard work has brought me and how the script has changed and evolved. But that's not what we're talking about this week, because as I've been going through this whole slog, I have had a bunch of shiny new ideas pop my way, as I always do. Things that are trying to distract me and seduce me away from the script that I am writing from Kaleidoscope. And this is not a new thing. However, I did experience a new phenomenon with these new ideas, which is that there's one of them that I can't quite shake. So, let's roll those titles and I will tell you all about it. So right after I finished filming my intro, my camera just shut down because it was too hot, because it was like directly in the sun. So I've moved over a little bit, we're in the shade now, we're good to go, and I can start talking about all of these seductive ideas that are trying to draw me away from Kaleidoscope. The thing that all of these ideas are saying, and the things that these ideas always say, because I always get new ideas while I'm in the weeds on another project, I am so much more easy, I'm so much more complete. I don't have any of the problems that your current idea has. I'm just gonna snap my fingers and you'll have a completed, perfect script. You can do whatever you want with. Intellectually, I know it's not true. Every idea has its problems, and every idea, even the ones that feel complete and perfect from the outset, have things that aren't going to work, that I'm gonna have to puzzle through, that I'm gonna have to get into the weeds on at some point myself. So I can't trust those voices. They're just gonna be as problematic as the idea I'm working on. I know that intellectually, but I want the problems that I'm dealing with on Kaleidoscope to not be problems. I want this film to be amazing and perfect, and I want to know that I'm going to come to the right answer for each of the problems I'm dealing with. And maybe it's because this draft for Kaleidoscope is so long, like at 263 pages, it is the longest script that I have ever written. And I'm going to have to cut it down by more than half for it to be a viable film. The slog of this rewrite, maybe it's all of that talking, but this feels like the most complex thing I've ever written, the most difficult thing I've ever written. And it feels like it would feel good to just stop right now and go to something that's easier. I'm not going to, but it would feel so good to just not have those problems anymore. So I'm gonna tell you what I feel like the problems I have in Kaleidoscope are, the ones that are making these new ideas feel so seductive. First of all, the length, which I already talked about. But then, on another level, there's the time loop. I love sci-fi, I love horror, I am really good at developing them. When I was an exec, that was what I worked on primarily. But as a writer, I can get so lost in the mechanics of the time loop, having to think about how this time loop works and where Lee and Jonah are going to be inserted and how much we need to see them being inserted each time to understand that it's looping. It's a lot of questions that I don't usually have to deal with in my more grounded and realistic works. Then there's the smaller scale stuff, which is the fact that Lee and Jonah, the two leads, conflict between them needs to drive the relationship forward and drive the story forward. I've known this. I've been trying to think of it and write some conflict between them into this draft, but I'm coming up blank. The only thing that I have right now is what I had before, which is there's a personality clash there. They don't respect each other in a way because they respect each other too much. Lee doesn't like Jonah telling self-deprecating jokes because she believes he's great, and Jonah doesn't like Lee not going for her dreams because he believes she's great. But that's not really conflict. That's just them being annoyed at each other because they like each other. That's not going to make for an interesting film. So I don't have the conflict figured out. And then there are the relationships between Lee and Jonah and all of the secondary characters, like Lee's ex-boyfriend Devin, who is also supposedly Jonah's best friend, but I haven't been able to find a way to fit that into the story yet. And finally, there is the fact that I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once a few weeks ago, and I'm still just blown away by that film. It deals with a multiverse and other sci-fi elements in a way that still manages to ground the story and focus it around real relationships and love. I mean, it's mind-blowing and breathtaking. That proves you can create big concepts at lower budgets. In reading about the production of that film, I found that the Daniels worked on their script for 5 years. And I want Kaleidoscope to be amazing and perfect, and I know I'm projecting a lot of my frustrations about just like getting through this first draft and not even knowing how my revisions are making it better and making it closer to the thing I want it to be. But what if I need to spend 5 years on this script to make it the thing that I want it to be? Am I willing to wait 5 years to make my directorial debut? And this is a lot of projecting forward because I've literally not even finished the first revision of this script. And maybe I'll have a different outlook in a few weeks, but the ideas that are coming to me that are seductive are ones that they feel simpler. They feel like something I could make sooner. So when these new ideas come to take me away, my first instinct is that I want to ignore them because I want Kaleidoscope to work. And in order for it to work, I need to put my effort into it. I need to put time into it. I need to really just embrace it and all of its flaws and all of its problems. So I try to ignore the ideas, and sometimes that works. I'd say about 50% of the time I'll think of an idea and say, I don't know if that's quite right. And it'll either go away or it'll stick in my head as, oh, that might be interesting if I can figure it out later. It's like putting it on hold at a department store. Like, do I really want this dress? Let me put it on hold and walk away for an hour. An hour later, no, I don't really want that dress. It was cute, but I can deal without it. If I can't ignore it, if I keep thinking about it, and that's, I'd say, 40 to 50% of these ideas, I'll open up a Word document or a journal or a Scrivener document and I will brain dump. I will just write down everything I can think of about this idea as fast as I can until I'm out, until like there's no other thoughts I have. I don't try to think about it. I don't try to plot it out. I don't try to add to the idea. I just get out as much information as I have in my head about the idea. Of those ideas I need to do that for, 90% of the time, that's all I need. Because the idea was in my head and it was attractive because it's a good idea. The reason that it was sticking in my head is because I wanted to remember it. So I write everything down. There's a physical record. I can go back and read it any time, and I've remembered it. So I do this brain dump. And 90% of the time after I do this brain dump, I realize that my perfect, easy, complete idea is actually just a premise for an idea, or a really cool scene, or sometimes it's just a vibe. Like I once woke up after having this amazing dream about Isla Fisher and Ryan Gosling, who were thieves, and Ryan Gosling was secretly an FBI agent trying to catch the diamond heist ring that Isla Fisher worked for. Such a vibe. I woke up, I was like, oh my gosh, I just had the dream that was a complete story. So I wrote it all down and I realized I have a premise and a cool scene involving Isla Fisher and Ryan Gosling walking out of a motel and snarking at each other, and the snark I remembered from the dream was actually terrible dialogue. About 90% of the time, once I write it down, I realize this is a cool idea, maybe I'll work on it later, but there's nothing here. There's nothing for me to sink my teeth into, and it's very much not easy. There's more problems here than I have in the thing that I'm writing. So this other 10%, because 90% of the ideas that are written down are just not really much ideas, it's just like a mood, a scene, a vibe, a premise. The other 10%, I'd say 9% of the time, it's a good idea. And it's something I'd be excited to work on further. And having the idea written down is enough to hold me off. It's enough for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna put this in my queue. This is gonna be the next thing that I work on. Then there's the 1%. I didn't know the 1% existed until about 10 days ago. So I'm gonna back up about 2 months. So 2 months ago, I was invited by a production company to pitch them some ideas for a mandate they were looking to fill. They had a specific genre of film they wanted to make, and they gave me some general guidelines, and I created about 7 to 10 pitches for them. And a lot of them were actually these brain dump ideas that I've had. And then a couple of them were ones that I created out of thin air to try to meet the mandate, to try to up my chances of being able to actually write something for hire for this company. After I pitched, they said, you know, these are really interesting. This one, we have something already similar. This one's not quite right. Maybe you could redo this one. Went through this whole process. They ultimately passed on all of them, which it sucks, but that's the business. And I figured that after they passed on them, the ideas that I created just for this mandate would be, they'd be gone, they'd be dead. Maybe I'd resurrect them if they fit some other pitch for some other time. But this one that I was probably the least excited about when I wrote it has been calling me. So the story itself isn't complete at all, but there is a full arc there because I had to create one for the pitch. I like the characters' names, there's room for humor in it, and romance, because, like, it's me, romantic comedy. And unlike Kaleidoscope, it is very contained and grounded and set in the real world. It doesn't have the problems that Kaleidoscope has. The other thing it doesn't have that Kaleidoscope has is history. Because remember, Kaleidoscope started off as a young adult novel. I wrote several different drafts and iterations of it as a young adult novel before I finally realized that it works better as a script about people who are in their mid-30s. So I don't have any history with this idea. It comes with no expectations from me. There's no love over the course of years trying to figure out the story. It's just fresh, new, simple, easy, somewhat complete. Oh God. I'm starting to sound like the idea itself. I had written it down already because of the pitch and it was still calling to me. I tried ignoring it. I tried telling myself I'll come back to it later. And then I was listening to this podcast on my run the other day. It's one of my favorite screenwriting podcasts. It's called Screenwriting from the Trenches, and it's hosted by Rob Hagans and Kay Tuxford, who I'm going to put their Twitter handles down in the description below, and I'm going to put a link down to the podcast in the description below. They're both great people, they're both really knowledgeable, and they both talk sense, which is great. But I was listening to their podcast on my run, and it was all about how you should write for a budget, write to what you have, what you're able to do on your own without having to wait for gatekeepers. And this project is very small, very contained, and admittedly would be cheaper to make than Kaleidoscope. So against all odds, this idea has kept coming back to me, and usually I'd tell it to wait, but I don't feel like it can wait. I'm not quite sure why, but it's calling to me. It's been calling to me for 2 months. And in the past 10 days, I finally surrendered to it. I'm not gonna say any more about it right now, because I want to keep it to myself. I want to see how it develops. I'm not giving up Kaleidoscope, not at all. Kaleidoscope is my top priority. I am going to keep working on it. This idea that I'm calling Secret Movie, because I'm not really telling anyone else about it apart from everyone who is able to watch this on YouTube, but I'm not talking about it to my writing groups. So this idea, because it won't wait, I am giving it 15 minutes a day. That 15 minutes comes after I finished all I need to do on my other projects, which I have 2 super high priority projects. One is Kaleidoscope, and the second is my editing of How to Fall in Love the Hard Way, my audio romantic comedy series. And then third, I'm writing some TV script samples, both pilot and spec, because I would love to get representation as a writer and writer-director. If you are a manager who's looking for an amazing writer-director of romantic comedies, hello, contact me. So this Secret Movie project, it's getting 15 minutes a day. That 15 minutes comes after those other projects, and if I don't get to it, I don't get to it. And I've been doing it for the past about 10 days, like I said, and so far, it's been fun. I've found problems with it, but there's a lot of blank canvas aspect that I'm really enjoying. And it is a departure from Kaleidoscope. The other thing that's nice about it is that I'm in a completely different place in it from Kaleidoscope. I'm outlining, I'm ideating, I'm fleshing it out, whereas with Kaleidoscope, I'm rewriting. So there's a certain freshness and newness and differentness to this process that's making it easy for me to keep these 2 scripts separate. We'll see how it develops over the course of the next several months. And maybe it'll turn into something really easy and simple, or maybe I'll eventually lose steam and realize, you know what, I need to give this my full attention. I need to give it more than 15 minutes, so that's gonna wait until after Kaleidoscope is done, or I'm taking a break on it because I'm done with the rewrite. So I might tell you more about the secret movie project another time. But for now, it is a 15-minute-a-day project that's going to change, evolve, and grow little by little. And Kaleidoscope, well, I'm about 10 days away from being done with this revision. So I'll be back in 2 weeks to let you know all about how this first revision has helped shape the script and helped shrink the script, because I think it's gonna be significantly shorter, fingers crossed. But next week, I'll be back again for more about the making of Kaleidoscope, hopefully less about the frustrations that I'm facing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.